If there is one thing that students notice here is they are seen, and that does not always feel good to them to be seen. They don't always want to be seen, and I promise you, our faculty, every one of them, will love you and care about your heart, your soul, and your mind. And it's because of that that they actually see you when you don't want them to see you. God has great things for them. It's our partnership with the parents to give them the best opportunity to receive those things and to hear them, so they can't hide.
As Christians, we know we're called to live lives that are different from the world around us. This isn't aimless, but purposeful. And as parents, we know this to be true for our children and our approach to education as well. So how do we do this? How can we be thoughtfully and intentionally different in education, parenting, community, and culture? 12 to 15,000 hours. That's the average amount of time a typical student spends at school from kindergarten to 12th grade. Inevitably, this time in school comes with bumps and challenges. But how can we help students learn and grow through these? Join us today as we sit down with Trinity's upper school principal, Wendy Massetto, to discuss the typical pain points of a student's journey and provide ways to stay the course and help students and parents alike in the process. Welcome to Different by Design. Welcome to Different by Design. I'm Matt Dixon, and today I'm looking forward to talking with the one and only Liz Caddow, alongside Trinity's upper school principal, Wendy Massetto, as we take a look at the student journey, recognizing some common pain points along the way for students and how they can overcome them, learning from them along the way. So, Liz and Wendy, thanks for sitting down and having this conversation.
Thank you, Dr. D, and I'm so glad to be here with my friend.
Thank you, Matt. We're excited.
So before we dive in and before we talk about the student journey, we have to get some background, some context for both of you because, well, I hear stories all the time, random stories that will come up in meetings, but I know you've known each other quite a while, correct? Could you share that story with all of us?
Yes, we have known each other for quite a while. We actually first probably met at church. We attended the same church back in the day, and then we crossed paths briefly at La Mesa Junior High. She had gone part-time to start Trinity, and I had recently started there, and she was the dance teacher.
Everyone's really surprised by that.
I actually took over when she left. I was her replacement dance teacher.
I didn't know that one.
Yeah, so I did take that position along with other things when I started teaching there.
I'm shocked you didn't stay.
I know, yes. I knew she was starting the school. I'd heard a lot of friends that we had in common were attending the school, and I knew that was happening for her. But I had been teaching in public school many years. I ended my career in the public school. I'd been teaching 14 years, and at that time, I think I'd been doing 7. So I was content where I was and thought that was great for her.
So Liz, what was your kind of first impression of knowing Wendy, whether that was church or school or anything like that?
Well, yes, we definitely had a relationship through church, and then we were getting to know each other briefly at La Mesa Junior High as I was transitioning to fully engage with Wally and what we were doing with Trinity. So we started Trinity, and we were still at the same church and knowing each other through different activities and things. But when we were getting ready to launch our logic school, it was a few years prior to that I started to talk to Wendy about coming and being a part of our faculty as our math teacher and logic school dean.
What was it for you, Wendy, that kind of drew you? Well, obviously, I know you've said that was kind of a process. Did you kind of think this whole Trinity thing was a little bit crazy?
I did. It was a process, and I do believe God is good and his timing is perfect. I first actually went to a information meeting for Trinity. It was at somebody's house back then, and we went to this information meeting.
Very professional.
Yes. I made my husband come along, and as we were going there, it would have been, our oldest was entering 5th grade at the time, so this was very early. She would have been entering 5th grade. And I was praying on the way there, oh, let my husband, think this is a great fit and be interested in this. And I went to the information meeting and did the whole thing. And we left and I got in the car and I said, there's no way my kids are going to that school. And I can't tell you what it was at the point, except again, God's timing is perfect. We weren't meant to consider it at that time.
Yeah.
During that process, as they kept going and she kept pursuing a little bit and throwing it out there. And she had other friends that she kind of would stick on me to hey, mention that when we get to junior high. During that time, I actually got some leadership role in our public schools in town and became a department chair and helped open a school in town, one of our public schools. And the skills that I gained from being in that leadership role and observing teachers and picking curriculum and mascots and helping that school start were all skills that I didn't realize I was going to need when I actually did jump on the Trinity train. I had no interest, told my kids, which is the, kind of the biggest joke, that my kids would never go to Trinity. And as we were getting closer to where she'd really be trying to get me to take the job, I had told one of our mutual friends, she'd asked me to meet her at a park. And that felt suspicious that we're going to
Again, very professional.
We were acquaintances and appreciated each other, but we weren't didn't hang out. So I'm okay. And I told this mutual friend, she's going to try and offer me a job. And
at the park.
And my friend's you can tell her no. I'm oh yeah, of course I can. I'm a public school teacher. I've been doing this a long time. I love teaching. I love what I'm doing. And sure enough, we went to the park, and obviously I didn't say no. I tried, and I, make the joke that I'm not sure, what happened during that time, if who was louder in my head, Liz or the Lord, but they were both working together and had a plan. And my kids had to want to go. We all go or nobody goes. We didn't really know what we were getting into. I never heard of classical education, except the information meeting that I left
at the house, but you weren't super excited.
That I said we were never going to go to school there. So just kept praying and spent the time, and God just worked things out that my kids wanted to go. And, I had a lot of years, experience, and I had to change some things financially for my family to make it work, but thought, let's try it. I came when we were starting the junior high in 7th grade, and my oldest daughter was in 7th grade, so she started there. My youngest daughter was in 5th. She came. I said, actually, I had to get another job at the same time because there was only one 7th. I'm a math teacher, and there was only one 7th grade math class, so I taught math and science. I had some previous science teaching experience, and I had to get another job part-time to actually be able to teach at Trinity to make it work. And so I had told Liz, there's no way I'll be teaching at Trinity full time. I kind of I was actually in ministry. I liked being in ministry. I liked teaching. There's no way I'm going to be teaching Trinity full time. I think that lasted maybe 2 years, and realized my heart's in education, and I loved what Trinity was doing. And it was exciting to be a part of the high school. In fact, and even on top of that, we thought I would just be like the dean of the logic school. And she was actually looking for a different upper school principal. Originally, she thought she would be looking for an upper school principal. And then we discussed, well, I can manage 7th through 9th grade. You don't need it yet. And then by the end of 9th grade, I feel like we kind of came together and said, I think it's me. I think this is the role God's called me to be at the school to be a part of, and the role to consider. And we kind of landed, which is kind of normal for us to land at the same place at the same time.
So in all that, it sounds like you learned to stop saying no way.
Yeah, yes, this is true.
Because that kept changing.
Yes, and my husband was trying to understand this classical education and thought kind of oh, it's kind of fun, you're exploring this, and our kids are going to there for junior high. But our oldest daughter is a softball player, and he had a specific school she was going to play softball at in town. And so he kind of said, this is fine, we can do this, you can kind of do this, and she can go to junior high there, but she's going to play softball at this school in town. And so not only did we realize that this was God's plan, but my husband within 2 years was our head, Trinity's head varsity softball coach for many, many years.
So he learned also to not say no way.
He learned also that this is the place, and he has really learned to appreciate it from his perspective too, and what the blessing it's been for our family.
What were some of the aspects, because I don't know if I've ever heard you actually really get into this part of it, but both for you in your career and what you were choosing to do, but also for your family, for your girls, what were some of the things that initially drew you to say, yeah, you know what, let's try this? And then what were some of the other things that kept you? Yeah,
so I think I felt like there was more. I know that's the thing we kind of say. I had been at the public schools for 14 years my last year, and I'm I just think there's more. And I love teaching, and I loved being with the students, and I just could not get enough time with all of the students to invest in them the way I wanted to, and was feeling like that was just becoming harder and harder to do. And I just felt like it was time to try this place and to be a part of something. And I didn't really understand classical education, and most of us at the time weren't ourselves had been classically trained. So we were reading, and I was asking, what does this look like? And we were doing it together, and there was excitement in that. And from the very beginning, the mission of Trinity has never changed, and that's been so clear what our goal was, even if it's been in different locations and different places, and we're finding out curriculum, but we've never changed our mission. And so I think that has been the guiding light for us. But like for my children, my oldest would always say that she just was afraid to write, and we didn't like to write, and I could understand that. And she very quickly, within the first year, we were kind of new using the Pro Gymnostica writing curriculum, but she could see, like, I can write, Mom. It's helping me figure things out, and it's making it so that I can feel like a writer. And that was like within year 2 that she had gotten a hold of. And
just like it sounds like the confidence for her as a student.
Yeah.
And the tools needed to build on that confidence.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite stories about Kaylee is it wasn't long after she was here, and when she herself then was in junior high going into high school, she used to tell me regularly that she will be coming back to teach here and be our head softball coach and be on our softball, coach our softball team.
Yeah.
And sure enough, she came back, and when she originally started teaching 6th grade.
She knew.
Yeah, she knew.
Well, and bought in that much.
Yes.
To what we're doing here, but also just appreciating what she experienced.
And
as
in
a
the early
student.
days, and we,
when we're
they
still
used to say
a
we're
little
the
bumpy.
guinea pigs, and we're like, you're not. But they were. We were learning on them, and every year that class just kept, trying things out, and
they were our first class.
Yeah, it was good though. They were doing good things and learned good things, and God has always been gracious in the faculty that he brings, that were mission-minded and hopefully faithful in trying to honor him in every part of what our school is doing.
What were some things that, for both of you, you just talked about the students at that time, if you will, being guinea pigs, or, trying to figure some of these things out, both for classical Christian education, but for Trinity as a whole, and what we were trying to establish and what we were trying to do as a school. What were some things that you would say for both of you that you learned that Trinity has grown and matured in since that time?
I would say we were definitely doing more in those early years of convincing the kids to stay for high school, because we were very different than the schools down the street, and that's what they knew, and that's what their parents knew. And there was a fear of missing out when you have a
There's
class.
Comfortability in what is known.
This is what's known, and we don't have those things. So I think in the first years, we were having to navigate trusting something new and different, and trusting what the Lord's doing. And it might look different, but that might be really good. It's intentionally different. But we did have to convince them. They might not have all the things that they thought were aware of were good in other schools.
Especially in the quote-unquote high school experience.
Yes, we got a lot of this that we're okay here at junior high and then staying. But I think it just, they also could see they had opportunities to make decisions as they were starting out and actually have an impact in, even though what that looks like, and even though we were intentional about doing some things what normally might be in a high school, they actually did get to have a say in some of the decisions that were made. Our lead class, their junior year, our writing instructor, Mr. Weichbrot, was actually already doing policy papers back that first group, and we took their policy papers to heart. And so I think as the more that they could actually have impact, that was a good partnership. I think now that I've been here this is my 19th year, so I've been in education a long time, between the 14 years and the 19 years. And we don't need to convince our students that are here
why it's good. They see that, and they're communicating it.
Well, they're able to see the fruit.
Yes.
Like, they're able to see students that are coming before them, and the final product, if you will.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and even our current students now, as we keep speaking life into what we're trying to do with our families and community, they too will lay the foundation for those that will continue to trying things or growing, expanding, but never faltering from what we said we wanted to do originally.
Yeah.
in our mission.
And it seems like probably one of the things, Wendy, that you were talking about when parents knowing what they were comfortable with and what they were used to, and the fact that we were doing something unique and something different. I think the reality is part of it is that it's hard for our rhetoric school students, for our high school students, that they're here all day, that they finish with a senior thesis, that they're taking high-level classes, that they're known. Some people that can be intimidating to them, that they're challenged, they're loved, all of those things that can feel intimidating, that can feel overwhelming. But I'm sure that was part of the convincing, right? Like that was like, hey, stay and do hard things. It's worth it. Mm-hmm. It's worth it. Well, I know both of you have been here. Wendy, you just mentioned 19 years, and Liz, you've been here since the dawn of time. You know the deep magic, but both of you have been here long enough to really been an integral part into what we see today for Trinity, and especially for our upper school, but to observe students and families along the way. And I think even as you were just talking about, Wendy, seeing those bumps and seeing the pain points that can come, I'm sure over that time you've seen a pattern to know really what to expect. I'm sure you're still surprised by things at times, but at the same time, there are things that regularly come up. I'm just wondering, what are some of those pain points you see for the typical student, and for us, obviously, the typical Trinity student, that most have to work through at some point? Obviously, academic, relational, maybe even spiritual, that you just know a regular part of the student journey.
And I would say that the bumps that come are what students feel everywhere. I actually think the blessing is that we're actually seeing the bumps and get to be a part of the bumps. They're not hidden. They're not ignored. They are so in the up front. The things they struggle with are things students struggle with, relationships and peers and balancing life, but they're an active part of it and that partnership. So I think a lot of those bumps are students that range from 7th to 12th grade. It's the journey they're on, and it's full of bumps. We all, no matter where we went to junior high and high school, we all had bumps. And you know, our kids are fabulous junior high and high school students trying to work it out, but it's a great place to work things out.
And our hope and heart is to be able to do just that, and speaking life into helping our parents see this is part of the journey. We're with you. We will ride the bumps together, and the highs and the lows, because that 13 to 18 anywhere has a lot. And I'm so grateful for our faculty and staff and coaches and their own heart's desire to help our kids navigate this time and stay the course. Every year, I'm grateful to hear from students that stayed the course, and it makes me laugh. Sometimes when they come back and visit us, they'll say, "I'm sorry and thank you," because they know it was challenging at times, but we navigated together with parents and all of us.
Yeah. What are some of the common challenges that you see? Some of these may not be unique to Trinity. There's the shared experience among all junior high age students or high school age students, but what are some of those?
So yeah, and that is usually what we say is hopefully what the experience of handling it is different. But I do think if there is one thing that students notice here is they are seen, and that does not always feel good to them to be seen. They don't always want to be seen. And I have lots of conversations about it's because I promise you, our faculty, every one of them will love you and care about your heart, your soul, and your mind. And it's because of that that they actually see you when you don't want them to see you. Yeah. And they might redirect you and exhort you and encourage you, even though it may not feel like encouragement, because they know God has great things for them. And it's our partnership with the parents to give them the best opportunity to receive those things and to hear them. So they can't hide, and they will struggle sometimes because they can't hide, even from their peers. There's not a place to go and get away from the friends in their class, or that we are intentionally, small class sizes, or they're at brunch and lunch. If they were at a big campus, they might be able to go hide as opposed to facing the issue. And I do believe from Liz on down, we've been encouraged and trained to be biblical in facing the issues and to work out our model of peacemaking that is intentional and different. So it's not, you can't go hide from it. You have to go and figure out where is that relationship. And that's hard. And because there is going to be conflict. I mean, junior high is full of conflict. High school is full of conflict. It is it. And so we navigate that together. And how does that look? And those are hard conversations to have.
Yeah. I'm sure it's common, that it's hard for parents when their child is sad.
Yes.
Right.
And sometimes, just like all of life, it can be a little messy as you're working through something. But Jesus calls us into relationship with him, and we're all called into relationship. To be purposeful in relationship, it does require hard work or effort and conversation. Again, why we don't have phones out at recess and lunch. Kids are engaged in conversation.
Actually talking to each other.
And talking to each other. It's actually, and what I love too is all the way through high school, they're actually playing, which is fun.
Yeah, and when we talk about peacemaking, it's interesting. I always tell prospective families, or just the other day I was in a family interview, and we were talking about this idea a little bit of how, Liz, I know that's a unique part of our culture in this idea of peacemaking. And it's not just for our students, it's for our faculty, staff, parents, all of that. But I know in the grammar school in particular, it's always, if you were to walk the halls after recess or after lunch, it is full of teachers and teacher assistants who are doing this very thing and working things out with students, because outside at recess, outside on the playground, this is where a lot of the time conflict arises, and we have to sit and we have to talk to them, and we have to say, as I hear you say often, I'm sorry, will you forgive me?
Please forgive me.
And forcing that muscle, if you will, forcing that habit of being able to just admit they're wrong. And I think it's always been fascinating to me to see that of our school. And over my time here, it's been a realization that there's so much more to education. There's so much more to school life than just academics, right? It's not just math, and it's not just literature. And obviously those are important things, and that's the core, if you will, of what we're doing here at school. But things like working out conflict, being a peacemaker is something that will serve them for the rest of their life, for our students, and being able to work that muscle. Because I know for me, when I'm in our culture at large, this isn't something that people can do. It's hard for people to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, will you forgive me? Mm-hmm. With our grammar school students, we have to kind of mediate that. But that, you even see that in upper school, where the goal is that we don't have to do that anymore.
Right, that is the goal. It takes
Sometimes
practice.
it works.
It's a tremendous amount of time.
Yes, it does.
And even if we're all honest, as adults, we never quite arrive in some of those things, and we continue to hopefully grow spiritually, and we're trying to help our students do that well, spiritually, relationally. And even in our last Vision Night, our alumni speaker, Caitlin Waugh, she spoke to that, how some of her preparation here at Trinity helped prepare her for having confidence to go speak to a professor about something hard, or even relationally, and is able to do that. And it's not something that's just taught and checked off. It's what happens over time, and why we, again, encourage people to stay the course over those bumps.
What's some of the fruit you've seen of that? Maybe for individual students, the fruit of this culture of peacemaking, maybe for individual students, but also just for our school as a whole.
They understand it, and they can see the good that comes out of it when they've been forgiven, and they can see that what does that mean to be forgiven, and what does that look like. And so I think they are braver at having the next conversation for themselves, or hearing somebody that they've offended. They're better at accepting that I did that because they've been given forgiveness. Hopefully they know that they can express things that are concerning to a faculty member or to somebody else that's hurt them. It just helps them grow in that area of not feeling alone, and that relationships don't have to break. You can repair them, and repairing relationships is important, especially when we're asking them to dialogue and have conversations and be able to speak well and know what they're speaking on and why they're speaking about something and why they have a stand on something. In all of our classes, when they're doing Socratic discussions, it is okay to respectfully disagree. And those are safe places there because they know they have worked out relationships with other people outside of, they trust the environment that they've seen. So it does help them to do the hard things. And some of the things that's different is participating in classes. You have to be able to put yourself out there, and it has to feel like a safe place. So relationships have to be restored for academic success. You can't ignore what's going on outside the classroom and think it won't impact the classroom.
Yeah, they're connected.
They are very connected. So that is one of the things we always want to work on as well.
And even when a student might feel that, oh, this teacher doesn't particularly like me, or, I don't feel comfortable with, how we encourage that conversation, and often with mediation, like, oh, well, let's have that conversation and make sure parents are a part of that and having that conversation as well. Because often sometimes what we feel or think isn't actually what's accurate related to even how we are perceived or how we think others perceive us.
One thing I notice about our culture in this idea of peacemaking, and Liz, I think this starts with you and it has trickled down to all of us, and again, even down to the students, but when we read Matthew chapter 5, the Sermon on the Mount, and Jesus goes through this series of blessed are those, blessed are those, blessed are those. And he gets to, in verse 9, blessed are the peacemakers. And even that word, I think I've seen here how the difference between a peacemaker and a conflict avoider, right? A conflict avoider just is like, I don't want to cause a problem. I don't want to have issue with people. And if anything, it's kind of this passive, reserved nature versus, I know you'll say often to our families, our students, faculty, staff, whoever it might be, the peacemaker is an active part, right? It's an active pursuit. I am pursuing to create, to make peace. And it's not, Wendy, to your point, even in the classroom, it's not this passive posture. It's something that we're asking our students, our community, our parents, everyone to be actively involved, whether that's the academic process or in being a peacemaker, in producing what we see.
Yes, and it actually harkens right back to our mission, virtue, wisdom, purpose, and courage, because it's taking initiative, and it actually requires all those things and that we grow in as a result.
Yeah.
But it is definitely not passive. And again, it makes me think of something we say regularly. It's like, do it afraid. It doesn't mean you don't do it. You do it afraid. And then you see Jesus work on the other side of it, but you have to do it first. And that's with anything, trying something new with our kids that we encourage, or challenged in studies or something.
And as we're talking about this, especially when they're younger in junior high and the first few times they've had to work out relationships, it's not one and done. It takes time. Like I even tell them that I don't expect them to be best friends or to be fixed. We might have to revisit this, but this is the process that you start getting help with that conversation. There are many times where I've gone to mediate, whether it's to students or even a parent and a teacher, and they've asked me to sit in, and most of the time I don't have to say anything because they just need the encouragement to do it and then just maybe redirect or just clarify something. As soon as they start, they care about the other person, and they realize they're both there for the same goal. They both care about the same things.
And you make me think of something as you're saying that, as an encouragement for our parents in this journey with their 13 to 18-year-olds. When you mentioned the one and done, for our parents, if I were to encourage them on something, having had 3 of my own, Wendy, your 2 are out as well. The one and done is a myth.
Yeah.
It takes lots of time, lots of conversations. I know for us as parents, sometimes we can be frustrated by thinking our child should already be there, or we shouldn't have to work through this conversation again, or we're back at this conversation. And yes, and yes, the whole time.
Yeah. What are some other challenging maybe seasons or times that you see for students, Liz, even maybe since the start of Trinity, whether it's from our educational approach or even just other maturation points that come up that you continue to see, repeat themselves. I know for me in grammar school, there's always this fear. Everyone thinks third grade's really hard, right? And especially part of it's because that's when they start Latin and it's the first time they read Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia. So that's a challenging read. So there are some of these pain points that come along the way. What are maybe some other ones that you guys have seen over the years that regularly come up?
Sure. And Wendy referenced this a little bit earlier. Definitely junior high is
its own thing.
Is its own thing.
Yeah.
And both her and I, well, that's where we met. I was teaching junior high, and so was she.
Junior high dance.
Yeah, at La Mesa. I taught history too. Thank you.
Yeah.
And world history. But yes, the aspect of the friendships that ebb and flow, especially in junior high through high school, and helping kids see that it's not the end of the world and necessarily the end of the friendship. It might be a change in the friendship right now. And then even when we look at the senior class every year, the dynamics and the shifting and the change, and then their senior year, they all have come to appreciate and love and care for each other, even in all their various quirkiness, and would consider themselves friends.
Yeah, every senior class by the end of the year, I do believe, considers themselves family. And just like that we have family members that drive us crazy, that person that drove them crazy in 7th grade is still probably driving them crazy in 12th grade. But they love them.
Yeah.
And it does happen at every single year. One of the most beautiful things about thesis is to see their genuine excitement for each other when they do their thesis. It's genuine joy that they can support one another in this journey, and they are different on the other side. They feel different. They've accomplished something that a lot of people have not ever had to do.
Yes.
And they carry each other through it.
Yeah.
And they've bonded through the whole time.
Yes.
And that it really is.
And so if I can even just touch on thesis as, one of the things that people are afraid of or they hear things about.
Worry.
It's not like something we just throw at them their senior year.
Good luck.
It's something we've been preparing them for, honestly, through grammar school. Even just standing up to do a Bible verse in front of your class is the beginning stages of getting them comfortable. And as they start to write, they're all little pieces that help you to prepare for thesis. And then even the students that come to us in 9th grade, we kind of reboot some things, and everything they're doing in their rhetoric classes is to prepare them for thesis.
Yeah.
AP language composition that's taught their junior year is a required course. Even if we have a independent study student that wants to take thesis, they couldn't do it unless they did our junior writing course because it directly ties into our thesis. It prepares them. They're writing as much in their junior year. Everybody thinks it's a thesis. They've written as many papers. They've written actually probably more their junior year. They just haven't written it on the same topic. Yeah. So now it's just broken up. It is very well thought out and intentional and planned. And along the way, it is very doable because they have the tools. We're not throwing it at them without giving them the tools. And I do believe they will say that if you really ask them, like, if a junior asks them, like, how is it? They're like, if you keep up on the timeline they sent you and keep doing it, it's doable. And if you pick a topic that you're passionate about, it's even better because you really you want to do more and find out more. Now, if you ask a senior, probably right around now, there is sometimes something fun about, saying how stressed you are about thesis. There is a little bit of
it's like a badge of honor.
Yes, it is. So they like to tell you those kind of things at this point in the year. Wait till the end and see those students and ask them again after the process. It is just so beautiful. And
it's an interesting point when we talk about senior thesis, because I agree. I've talked to many of our now alumni, many graduates who on the other side of thesis, if you really were to ask them about it, they would say, it really wasn't that bad. And like you said, if they chose something that is interesting to them, it can be at times an enjoyable process. But just like anything, probably most of the things that are worth doing are hard. I think our students, we know that as adults, but our students see that from an earlier age, reading difficult books, difficult conversations, relationships, difficult tasks, that they are challenged and they are stretched because they can. Like we know they can, and we see what they can be, and we see what they can accomplish, and we want to help them get there.
Going back to some of what Wendy was saying related to thesis, just how the whole process for us in our classical approach, especially with our faculty, is with the books that they're reading and what they're going through. They're just not thrown into it. It's a discussion and dialogue, and our faculty helps carry them through. And even in the books, the notes that they take and learn how to do that over time, as well as what I hear regularly is our students, once they go to college, they're asking their parents to send them their books that they read here, because they've already gone through them, and now they get to go through them again, depending on what they're studying at a more mature level.
Yeah, that whole process for them, it's interesting that they, just like anything that's worth reading, anything that's worth doing, as Christians, we read God's word over and over and over again, and we read the same thing over and over and over again because, one, it speaks to things of permanence, but two, it's because in different seasons of life, we understand it differently. And we can apply it differently. And in a similar way, not in exactly the same way as something like God's word, but in a similar way, what our students go through, they're just in some ways skimming the surface of what the impact that will have on them the rest of their life. And like you're saying, when they get to college, they're going to maybe reread something, and it's going to hit them in a new way, in a fresh way, because of their maturity, because of their season of life, because of what they're going through. And it still was worthwhile for them to do it and to do something challenging, but that will stay with them the rest of their life.
Yes, and the process itself, preparing them for whatever the Lord might have for them in starting the school. And I know I've said this before, not only for my own children, but for all of our children we have the privilege of serving, is that we've prepared them in such a way that they will have some options and some choices, but it does mean making sure that they are prepared for that. And we don't know what Jesus will call them to, but we want them to be able to have preparation for what will be ahead. And even when we think of where our seniors are right now with their different college acceptances, one of the things that I think is a little bit of a pain point is that junior to senior year for parents and students, sometimes the pressure or amount of worry they might put on that. And again, the way that we've designed what we do as a school is to help navigate them through that with college advisement, dual credit, and that they're not left alone in that journey, and we're partnering with them, but to rest in, if someone didn't get an A in something or even a B, it's going to be okay. They will be able to have options and choices as well.
Yeah, it's about challenging them.
Yeah.
Appropriately. But I think with that, for many students, I think we could go all the way down to grammar school, but I think this happens a lot, Wendy, for you in upper school, where you have a student who says, I don't like school, right? And they might not like it because it's hard, or I don't like my teacher. I don't think my teacher likes me. How do we respond to that? How do you respond to either a student who comes your way that says something like that, or a parent that comes your way and says, my child's not happy, right? Because this is challenging.
Hard is not bad, for one thing. Hard can be very good if we're looking at it as what do we need to do? How do we persevere? Doing hard things, including everything from relationships to speaking, standing in front of a class or participating. When you're looking at the Bible, there's hardness throughout. I mean, it's hard. Life is hard. There's no way around that, because if it was perfect, we wouldn't need a savior. We wouldn't actually need to be turning to the Lord. So look at hard as an opportunity. But when they say stuff, if they're concerned about, I don't like my teacher, you're going to have certain teachers you're drawn to or not. But if they say the teacher doesn't like me, I will actually not let that go until they've seen the teacher. You need to sit down. Mom, Dad, you can come with them, but you need to sit down and say, and tell the teacher, I don't feel like you like me, and let the teacher respond, because they would not be working here if I did not feel like they loved our students. They need to have the skills to teach the courses that they're teaching, but they have to be invested in the student and love them completely. And I do believe our teachers do. And so when the parent or the student says that, the teacher will right away, I am so sorry I made you feel that way. What makes you think that? I do love you. It is very normal for our teachers to tell our students, I do love you. I love you so much that I am going to continue to press and push and do this, but maybe I can do it in a different way that makes you feel more comfortable. Those are the conversations that we are encouraging. If the student comes home and is complaining about they don't have friends or all the things that they don't like, I always encourage parents to make them say 3 good things about the day first.
Yeah. Train our minds.
Train our minds, because they're junior high and high school. They don't like anything. And what they liked last week, they don't like this week. So that is not where we start. And we can all respond to, great, tell us, what did you learn today? What was good? What teacher really inspired you? And get them to do that first. Then your goal is hopefully it's less and less, and you are training their minds to not see those things.
It's easy to feed into the negativity sometimes. And to be honest, it's natural for all of us to complain. It's grumbling and complaining. We see that the Israelites in the Old Testament, grumbling and complaining. We see that throughout God's word of God's people, grumbling, complaining, when really, if we zoom out and we see and understand maybe what's going on or what we're going through, it might actually be for our good.
Yes.
And it's too easy to complain. And as parents, it's probably easy for us to feed into that, as opposed to helping train our children to think on good things, right? Think on true things, think on honorable things by asking, like your point, asking simple questions of, what are we thankful for? Because probably some hard things happened today, as did for probably all of us in our days. But to train our minds to go, Lord, what did you give me today? What am I thankful for? What were some positive things, even amidst the challenge?
And when you're focusing on that, but then if the same theme keeps coming up, then that's when we would ask that the parent, come and talk to us, come and talk to me, come and talk to the teacher. The parent communication is key. Having them come and let us know. We can't fix things we don't know about. We can't help if we don't know about things. So it is so key that parents are willing and feel comfortable, hopefully enough, to come and let us know. They have to let us know if something is going on. And we do ask, if there's something in the classroom, go to the teacher first. If that didn't go well, then come talk to me. If there's something out helping it, outside of the classroom, come let me know right away. I'm the person to come to. It will help them if there's not chattering or talking with other parents. First, bring it to me, because I might know something or be able to help them, or I can make the adjustments that need to be. Really open to having the conversation. I would love if sometimes when you're outside, if we've had a discipline issue and you're not in it, and the only people in it that are really in it are the student, the parent of those students, and myself are really in it. And even I don't always know everything. But I would ask that you can come talk to me, and I won't ever talk about any student's discipline issues, but I can talk about our philosophy on discipline and maybe help answer some questions to them. We don't have a prescriptive discipline policy. It is restorative, intentionally. Where is the heart, and is the student repentant? And that doesn't mean there's not consequences, but what does that look like is different. And so again, anything that the parent has concerns with, whether it's academic, whether it's friendship, whether it's something that they're dissatisfied with the school, please bring it to us. We can't do anything, work with anything, partner with you without us knowing.
Yeah.
So that direct communication is so important.
And I would just affirm on what Wendy is saying with what she does with her whole team. And sometimes it might require a second conversation, or even a third sometimes, to make sure that there's clarity and understanding. And I also appreciate about upper school when we respond to something, for instance, like I think of homework. Wendy and her team, for instance, if there is a week or so where there were maybe too many tests or something happening related to homework, and it's brought to our attention immediately, her team is on it like, oh, is there something we can adjust here? Or do we need to adjust here? And again, it's a conversation related to how we can partner with our parents and our students in the entire learning experience.
Yeah. I think what's interesting to me and what I appreciate about working at a place like Trinity, oftentimes when we set out on an academic pursuit or an academic journey when working with students, even how we started this conversation, we can look at the variety of things that come our way, the variety of, let me say this, we could have talked about all the hard books and Latin and high-level math and what science looks like and all of these things as far as pain points. But every single time, what it comes back to, and what I appreciate about both of you and your heart, is it ultimately comes back to the relationships. And so really the overarching thread, the overarching theme that are challenges for our students, that are challenges for our families, kind of come back to the relationship. So yeah, you know what? We do have a strong academic program. Yeah, we do want to do hard things. Yeah, we do want to stretch and challenge. But all of that is only successful when it's done in relationship, and it's done in relationship with families. And I think that's so important. I think that's what God calls us to in community with one another. So this is a community that, yes, we're pursuing academic things, but Wendy, as you said, if those relationships aren't there, our academic pursuits actually, we're not going to be successful. It's not going to have the same look or feel or honestly success unless those relationships are intact.
Yes, and where do we ultimately place our trust? Mm-hmm. Which we know is in Jesus Christ, mm-hmm. and that he knows all these things as well, mm-hmm. and he never wants to leave us where we are. Through his word, his people work through the things that help us learn and grow, again, not without some challenge at times, but he's ultimately the one who helps lead us through it all.
And that's the commonality. It's a picture of the body, the church, where we come together as a school community, and we have differences. We don't always agree on every little nuance and every little thing, but as a community of believers, we can find commonality in the hope that we have in Christ. And as a result, those relationships can grow, can thrive, can be resolved, even when it's hard, because of what he's done for us.
Yes, and we stay the course through it with him and people.
Well, this has been a great conversation. And as we close, I'm curious from your perspective, if you could just share some resources for those who are listening, maybe just some of the best resources. It could be on education, it could be parenting, it could be, as we've talked about, relationships that have been helpful to you personally or professionally that you might be willing to share with our listeners.
The two books I would mention are not so much dealing with the current issues of today, but they're kind of tried and true as your child is navigating these new seasons of junior high and then of high school, so of our logic phase and of our rhetoric school phase. And one of them is called Age of Opportunity by Paul David Tripp, and the other one is Ready for Responsibility by Dr. Bob Barnes.
I harken back to the first meeting that Wendy and I had at the park, and I know she was saying no, or had kept saying no. And she also left out the part that we went on multiple walks together and had lots of conversation related to why she needed to come be a part of our school. And I think I knew that Jesus knew she needed to come be a part of our school, and she was going to eventually say yes. But that very first park play date we had is when JC, my now daughter-in-law, met Ian, and Ian was in 3rd grade. JC was in 5th grade.
I'm glad you clarified that the play date was for your kids and not for you two. I was wondering.
Yes. And actually, of course, through many years together and navigating, my son included, having multiple conversations with Mrs. Massetto when he was in junior high and high school and working through those pain points. Now to have JC as daughter-in-law and be in relationship that way, and we share a grandbaby, is actually Jesus's kindness and grace, and again, what he does through relationship if you stay the course.
All right, thank you both for joining me today and having this conversation about the student journey, but really, as we have discussed, the importance of relationship when it comes to academics and Trinity's approach to education. So thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Dr. D.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Different by Design. To learn more about Trinity Classical Academy, visit us at trinityclassicalacademy.com. And for more information about our approach to classical Christian education, be sure to check out the conversations over at the Classical Academy podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe and share. Until next time.